there's a lot about surfing that does seem to be kind of analogous to the market. And, one of the things that kind of strikes me the most is how patient you see some of those surfers being out there. And I feel like we keep on talking about patience. It's one of those things where, um, again, you go early in the morning and you'll just see a bunch of surfers, like, Huntington Beach area. They're all lined up. They're just waiting for that right wave. And they pass up a lot, right? Because it's just not the right moment. It's their positioning isn't exactly right. And so a lot of times it's waiting out there. Arusha, have you ever done any surfing yourself?
No, I haven't done any surfing. I did when I moved here years ago. I was doing a little boogie boarding,
Okay.
and I caught some waves
Hmm.
that kind of carried me all the way into the beach, and it was pretty amazing actually. And then I was like, okay, I get why
Right.
people get obsessive about this because it was kind of it was just kind of mind boggling that you're just
Mhm.
carried so far, but to getting back to that analogy, that's essentially what we were talking about in the first segment,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
I think once you go through a couple of cycles and see how markets behave and how the stocks we look for behave, when everything lines up,
Hmm.
you learn to appreciate those kind of moments right there. And then when you don't see it, you learn to be a little more patient. Now, obviously, during that kind of process, you're hopping on that surfboard for what you think is a next great wave, and you're wiping out left and right. So you're getting hit, you're making your mistakes, all that stuff. But you eventually learn that if you start taking too many shots when the time is right, when the time is not right,
Hmm.
you're gonna stop yourself out. You're gonna wear yourself down, and you're gonna be too tired. You'll be on the shore by the time the great waves are coming that are gonna be able to carry you a long distance. So that's why, like, and I'm assuming that we've been pretty consistent at this when we talk about the markets over the last few months. That it's not the time. It's not the time. Right. Even though you have some of these powerful rallies, what that kind of make everyone think that maybe this is really powerful. Maybe it is the right time. But when you look at kind of the stocks and everything else, and you have a little bit of that experience to lean on, you realize that this is not the same kind of environment that it was a few years ago or in
Yeah.
other great bull markets.
Hmm. And to your point, I think one of the things that's attractive about the stock market, like surfing, is when you kind of catch that wave, and you're like, oh, this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to have the right stock or the right wave, and to be able to carry something for a while and to get a real meaningful profit out of it. I think that's what really attracts a lot of people to it, and makes them want to keep on trying to get those winners, because the reality is, and I've done a lot of analysis on our IBD 50 list, looking at Bill's portfolio, my own portfolio, and the reality is, it's not like you have to have a lot of wins to make it big. It's very few wins that you're really having a big material impact on your portfolio. That's what does that's what does the most for you. It's there have been a couple uh, analyses that I've done where it's about 8 to 10%. 8 to 10% is where the majority of your performance or outperformance will come from if you're doing a good job at this. And so you can have a lot of a lot of stocks that you're wrong on, a lot of waves that you pass up, and it's just, catching those few that are really right. That's what's going to make the whole difference for you. So I think your point is, exactly, whether you're boogie boarding or surfing, once you kind of catch a few just right, and sometimes that means, being at the right place at the right time, right? The positioning is important, and your timing of, really kind of catching it at the right time and not chasing it. You have to kind of be where the wave is. If you're seeing the wave kind of break, 100 yards to your left, well, guess what? You're not going to catch that. That's just too far away, and you shouldn't go chasing it, because then you're going to be out of position for maybe the wave hitting in your area. So, what else about surfing and this market kind of strike you as analogous here?
I think consistency,
Hmm.
right? You're kind of doing the same routine. So you're talking about all those surfers, and I see it here, near Manhattan Beach over here.
Hmm.
Those surfers are there all the time. And they're very consistent. They're there in the early mornings. There's plenty of surfers in the evenings.
Yeah.
It's part of their lives, right?
Hmm.
It's a routine. Uh, I'm sure as they integrate it into their life with their jobs and things like that, there's a point where they're automatically, it's just at 4 o'clock in that day, maybe after work, they just head towards the beach. They have all the stuff there that
Right.
they need, the wetsuits and the surfboard.
Probably a routine.
Yeah, exactly. They have it
Mhm.
all there. They're not thinking about it too much, because you start thinking about something too much, you're not going to do it. And it's a habit, right? So it's just part of their life. And
Mhm.
so that's the only way you're going to catch that big wave, right? And we've talked about this before, but Laird Hamilton, we would play like Laird Hamilton's video, and I think it's still on YouTube. But he was on Charlie Rose,
Right.
and Charlie Rose is asking him, what drives you to do this, and describe catching a big wave and all this kind of stuff. And the way he described it is the exact way that Bill O'Neill would talk about stocks, where you have to be there every day. You have to prepare that the big wave is coming, or the next great stock is coming today, and you have when it comes, there's no hesitation. You got to hop on it. Now
Mhm.
there are going to be plenty of these waves or stocks that, like you said, Justin, they're not going to work out, right? They're going to get stopped. You're going to get stopped out, or maybe they're going to go up 20%, and that's it.
Mhm.
But then there, of once in a while, and especially at the beginning of a new bull market, you may catch one of those next great leaders. And then it's not that hard to catch the next great leader. It's the hard part is managing it,
Yeah.
right? And just like I'm sure some of those 100-foot waves that I see some of these guys surfing, that's probably a little bit hard to manage something like that, right?
Uh,
So it's the same thing with stocks. I've been in all of these kind of great, huge book, monster winning stocks over the last 15 plus years. And very few did I manage them extremely
right.
well. I managed some of them okay and things like that. So that, I think that is one of the harder parts. Now, I think the other hard part that people don't realize, and this is probably the hardest thing, is the environments, especially when you're getting started out learning this. And I got started out in 2000, so it took me 2.5 years to really even see a good, like, real good bull
Yeah.
market, right? Studying and using Can Slim. But the hard part is being, participating in an environment where you can actually get some practice at buying great stocks, breaking out in a great market. They don't come around that often. And so those windows open up only so many times. When they close, kind of like they've closed after 2020, yeah, we're kind of just sitting on the sidelines for the most part,
Mhm.
waiting. Yeah, it's just been just a lot of waiting, and kind of getting frustrated some once in a while, buying stocks and things like that, and trying small positions. But that's the hardest part. It's because you might have to wait a few years before you even get a chance to put some of these things that we're talking about in action, where you
Right.
can actually get some experience. And I think that's the hardest part, versus any of the other kind of professions out there, where you can consistently, work on math, or work on medicine, or work on carpentry. You can just get up and, do that stuff pretty consistently. You don't have to wait for a bull market to practice being a heart surgeon, right? So
Mhm.
so I think that's the hardest part that catches a lot of people off guard, because they initially think that you should be able to make money all the time in the market. That's not the case.
Well, and I think, what some people don't realize is, with a lot of those professions, let's just take heart surgery, for instance. That's something that takes a lot of time. And there's something that I feel like some people are thinking of the stock market more as a lottery type thing where you just have to be lucky. And why am I not making money? Because I made money in 2020. Why am I not making money now? And with some of these professions, even like let's say heart surgery. I mean, look, not every not every heart surgery comes up that often, right? In order to kind of
Right.
get your feet wet in a lot of different surgeries. I mean, you have to have the right surgery come up for you to even get that practice. But there's also a huge element of risk management here, because look, I was sitting on the beach with my son, and he's 8 years old. He's not a swimmer. He doesn't like getting water in his face, right? I'm not going to go bring him out in waves, right? That would just be silly. And I haven't surfed enough to where I would even go in a situation where there were big waves because I just
Mhm.
know that my experience isn't there, and look, if the water's too choppy, if it's the weather's not right, there's a lot of things that you can look at and say, hey, you know what, maybe there are going to be some waves to catch here, maybe there are going to be some stocks to catch here, but there's too much risk to make it not a good scenario for me, that it is better to just wait and watch from the shore until the weather improves, until the conditions improve, what have you. So I think risk management is a huge part of this that some people forget, and that's why we stress so much that when you get into a stock, it's important that you have your exit strategy right. I mean, the last thing you would want to do is if you were not a strong swimmer and you didn't have good skills, you wouldn't want to be in one of those big waves if you didn't have a way of kind of getting out of it before it tumbles all over you. There's just a lot of things here where it's important that you're there at the right time, but also you have that patience to not chase everything, to sit there and wait for the right thing. And look, there are some of these waves that kind of go for a long time, and maybe you don't ride the whole thing. Sometimes you might pull out of the wave because you want to go catch another one, to get that break, that really strong move that happens at the beginning, rather than kind of riding it for a very long time all the way into shore. So
Yeah,
a
I
lot of
think that's a
analogy.
great point. Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be the Laird Hamiltons and try to catch the 100-foot wave to enjoy surfing, right? You can get the small waves
Yeah,
and things like that, right? And but get a lot of small waves.
right.
Yeah, a lot of this is making it your own, adapting it to your personality. I think Jesse Livermore did it well, where he would when he saw the markets weren't working and the markets weren't ready to give out money, he went fishing. Right,
Hmm.
he didn't go surfing at that point. He went fishing. He just hopped on
Hmm.
his yacht and went fishing for a number of months to get away from the market. So, and that helped him kind of preserve his mentality and prevent him from getting chopped around and getting tempted by the market, because the market's always going to give you, especially in bear markets, they're going to give you so many reasons during certain times, maybe like now, where they're going to tempt you. Right, the rallies are going to be so strong, and you're going to see your stocks starting to bottom out, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is it! Here's the bottom." And like as we've seen, like in March and May, all of a sudden the floor falls out, and we're taking another leg lower. So you can't assume that we're necessarily at that bottom, but you kind of incrementally move in, incrementally move out, but you have to not have to have any worry about the FOMO. Right, you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about the fear of missing out. And when the markets aren't there, and when the markets aren't set up, especially for you, it, feel the freedom to kind of walk away and take that mental break.
Hmm. Well, and to that point, a lot of people almost feel like they can almost force the market to bend to their will,
Yeah.
and no one thinks that about the ocean, right? You have to go with what the ocean is giving you. You can't just make a wave appear out of thin air, and so you have to just go with what's being given to you, and it's up to you to ride it appropriately. Whether that's through your risk management, your position size, what have you, but. You have to have the right conditions. You have to have a wave to even ride. And right now, that's kind of coming full circle to what we were talking about. there aren't that many stocks out there, so maybe the conditions are great in terms of it's looking like sunny skies, but if there's no stocks to buy, then what do you do? You're just gonna have to sit there and wait for a little while and be patient, and that's okay.